In Sylvester Stallone's life, what has always stood out is his incredible ability to overcome adversity and fight for justice. His journey, marked by immense challenges and even greater victories, intertwines with stories that, while they might seem straight out of a movie script, reflect the raw and powerful reality of a man with a huge heart. From his early steps as an actor to becoming a Hollywood icon, Stallone never shied away from life's hardships. And it was precisely in one of these moments of unexpected battle for humanity that he found himself becoming a hero not only on screen, but in real life. It was a cold morning in Los Angeles, one of those mornings that seemed ordinary but held something more. Stallone was preparing for yet another important meeting with his production team. The city, as always, blended the glamour of the big stars with the harsh reality of the inequalities on its streets, where survival was a constant challenge. Skyscrapers loomed large over a city where, however, social inequalities were always in plain sight. Stallone, who had always had a sensitive view toward the struggles of the less fortunate, was on his way to his meeting when something unusual happened. In front of a luxury restaurant, he noticed a scene that deeply touched him. A man, visibly from the upper class, well-dressed and exuding superiority, began insulting a man who appeared to be homeless, sitting on the stairs of the establishment asking for help. The words of the businessman, impatient and disdainful, were dripping with contempt. "Don't you have any shame? Get out of here. You're ruining my view. Who cares about you? Go somewhere where you're more useful," said the man, with an arrogant gaze as if the presence of the homeless man was a threat to his vision of success and comfort. Stallone, passing by, stopped for a moment. He wasn't one to get involved in situations like this, but something about this moment moved him deeply. The businessman's words were not just an offense to the homeless man. They were an affront to human dignity, a rebuke to the idea that everyone deserves to be treated with respect and humanity, regardless of their social status. The homeless man, who looked tired and defeated by life, looked up at Stallone with a faint smile and said, "Don't worry about it, man. I'm used to it." His dirty clothes and worn coat couldn't hide the eyes that reflected a silent wisdom, as if he had witnessed more pain and hardship in his life than any human should. Stallone, touched by the scene, couldn't ignore what was happening. He approached the man, placed a hand on his shoulder, and said with firm and steady words, "None of that, friend. You have every right to be here, just like anyone else. The problem is not you. The problem is with those who can't see humanity in others." The businessman, seeing his arrogance challenged, advanced toward Stallone, clearly irritated. "What are you trying to do, Stallone?" he asked, thinking that a simple provocation would be enough to intimidate a man he saw only as a Hollywood star. But Stallone, who had already faced far more dangerous villains on screen, was undeterred. He looked the businessman in the eye calmly and replied, with authority that came from someone who had fought through many battles, "I'm here to defend what is right, to stand up for the respect everyone deserves. And my friend, you are wrong. The world needs more compassion and less judgment." Around them, people began to gather, drawn in by the confrontation. The businessman, trying to regain control of the situation and save his image, attempted to apologize. But there was no turning back. The truth was clear for all to see. The man many saw as merely an action movie star, known for punching fictional enemies, was now standing up for someone whom the system had marginalized. He was not just defending an individual. He was challenging the prejudices and inequalities that permeate society. Stallone's words, simple but powerful, echoed in the crowd. Every human being deserves respect. A person's dignity is not in where they sleep, but in how they are treated. These words, seemingly direct, had a profound impact because they gave voice to a feeling many had but didn't know how to express, that humanity transcends social status and any label. The homeless man, moved by Stallone's intervention, looked at him with tears in his eyes and said, with a shy smile, "Thank you, man. I never thought someone like you, someone famous, would care about someone like me." Stallone, deeply touched by the man's sincerity, replied, "It's not about fame. It's about being human. and you're worth as much as any one of us. After the incident, the media quickly picked up on Stallone's intervention, and images of the confrontation between the businessman and the actor spread rapidly on social media. Reactions were mixed. Many applauded Stallone for his courage in taking a stand, while others questioned why a famous person like him would get involved in such a small conflict. But regardless of the reactions, the impact of the scene was immense. It brought to the forefront deeper issues surrounding social inequality, the treatment of homeless people, and the need for more empathy in society. Stallone's attitude in that moment made him be seen in a very different light. He was no longer just a Hollywood star. He was now an example of true humanity, someone willing to fight for what was right, regardless of what others thought. The arrogant businessman, who had never imagined his behavior would be publicly challenged, found himself facing the consequences of his actions. The situation, though seemingly small, sparked broader discussions about values, respect, and how we treat the marginalized and the invisible in society. At the center of this quiet revolution was Stallone, who, without hesitation, placed himself between the disdain of a wealthy man and the dignity of a human being who simply wanted to be treated with respect. This incident showed that, regardless of fame or success, what really matters is respect for others, solidarity, and compassion. Stallone, by doing what many might have avoided, became an example of how we should act in the face of adversity, always choosing the path of humanity and mutual respect, without worrying about what's easy or convenient. And as everyone knows, Stallone's life was never simple. Even after this act of courage, the journey of a man who had achieved so much and yet faced so many internal and external battles would not be without its challenges. But for those who knew him closely, this gesture was no surprise. It reflected exactly who he was, someone who cared more about what was right than about the spotlight. Therefore, this moment was not just a manifestation of his character, but a reflection of his true essence as a human being. With the video of the confrontation gaining traction on social media, journalists began seeking more information. They wanted to understand how a man who had spent his whole life playing heroes could be so genuine in his defense of what was right. They spoke about Stallone's childhood, marked by difficulties, with an absent father and a mother who struggled to support him. He grew up in a poor neighborhood, where he learned early on how to deal with prejudice and life's adversities. He knew what it was like to feel marginalized, just like many homeless people who were treated as invisible by society. But this revelation did not happen immediately. Stallone's story unfolded gradually. He began to speak more openly about his childhood, his financial struggles, and moments of despair. The famous story of how he almost gave up his acting career because he was on the brink of bankruptcy became even more powerful when he shared a previously unknown detail. He had used all the money he had to feed a homeless man's dog during a period when he could barely pay his own bills. For Stallone, these small acts of kindness were, in fact, the greatest victories. He began using his platform to speak about the need for more empathy in the world. The incident with the businessman was not just a defense of a homeless person, but a movement in defense of all those who have no voice. And his message resonated with the public, who, seeing this authentic attitude, could not help but admire the person behind the tough guy image of Hollywood. Stallone was more human than ever. As months went by, the repercussion of the event grew. Charitable organizations began reaching out to Stallone for fundraising campaigns for homeless people. Companies that had always seen him as just a publicity figure now invited him to discussions about social responsibility. And through all this, Stallone continued his journey with humility, never allowing himself to be dazzled by the spotlight. What many didn't know was that the homeless man he had defended so courageously became an important part of his life. After the confrontation with the businessman, Stallone made a point to visit him at his temporary shelter, bringing him new clothes, food, and a heartfelt conversation about life. The man, whose name was Thomas, had been homeless for years, but what Stallone saw in him was a soul full of potential, just waiting for an opportunity to change his story. Stallone began helping Thomas in various ways. He connected him with rehabilitation programs, helped him find a job, and over time, Thomas transformed. He became a testament to the fact that anyone's life can change when they have support and, more importantly, when they have someone who believes in them. Their friendship grew stronger, and years later, Thomas became an activist for the rights of homeless people, speaking openly about how his life was transformed by Stallone's intervention. This chapter of Stallone and Thomas's story was irrefutable proof that a single act of kindness can spark a wave of changes in many people's lives. What Stallone did for Thomas was more than a one-time help. It was an investment in his future, a chance to rewrite his life's narrative. Sylvester Stallone will always be remembered for his iconic roles in films like Rocky and Rambo, characters that symbolize overcoming obstacles, struggle, and perseverance. However, what he did off-screen is also what touches people the most. His defense of a homeless man in Los Angeles became a symbol of what it truly means to be human. And he didn't stop there. Over time, Stallone began supporting other social causes, actively participating in inclusion projects and advocating for the rights of vulnerable people. His actions for a more just and equal society started to gain more prominence than his achievements in cinema, and he became an advocate for social change. The act of courage he displayed when defending Thomas was not just an isolated event. It was a reflection of a lifetime of resistance and empathy. Stallone, the man who overcame so many adversities, knew exactly what it was like to feel undervalued. And that's why he stood up that day in the middle of the street to tell the world that no one, no matter how invisible they were, should be treated with disdain. Sylvester Stallone taught us that, while we all have our inner struggles and face immense challenges, true strength comes from how we treat others along this journey. He showed us that being a hero is not just about defeating enemies in films, but about standing up for those who cannot defend themselves, about fighting for the dignity and rights of others. Stallone's gesture in defending a homeless man was more than a moment of public glory. It was a powerful reminder that, regardless of our status, we are all human and deserve respect. He used his position of privilege to shed light on a social issue that is often ignored, and in doing so, he changed many lives. Stallone's story is one that resonates with all of us because it is a story of humanity, compassion, and overcoming obstacles. Now, we invite you to subscribe to our channel and watch other exciting videos about celebrities who, like Stallone, have inspiring stories of courage, empathy, and transformation. Don't forget to leave a comment, as we would love to know your thoughts on this story and how it touched your heart. And please like this video and share it with your friends so that more people can be moved by this message of kindness and compassion. Let's spread these stories together so the world becomes a better, more empathetic and humane place.